We begin our show today with breaking news out of Japan. Former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has died in the hospital after being shot at a campaign event in a nation where gun violence is so incredibly rare. A warning, while the following video is not graphic, some viewers may find it disturbing. Abe was giving a speech in Western Japan when shots were fired at him. The suspect, a man, was quickly tackled to the ground and arrested at the scene. The country's current prime minister called the shooting unforgivable. Let's go straight to local journalist Kaori Enjoji, who joins us from Tokyo with the latest. Kaori, thanks for being with us this morning. First, just walk us through what we know right now. How did all of this unfold?
Well, Joe, the nation is in mourning and in shock that the former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has died from multiple gunshot wounds, we now know. He was in Western Japan in the city of Nara in broad daylight at around noon local time. He was giving a speech on behalf of a candidate that was running in local elections that are scheduled to be held here in Japan on Sunday. And as he was giving that speech, 2 gunshot wounds, according to eyewitnesses, were heard on the scene. He was then airlifted to a nearby hospital, and the physician who treated him at that hospital has spoken over the last hour or so, and he said that when the former prime minister arrived at the hospital, he did not have a heartbeat, and for hours they tried to resuscitate him, giving him what they described hundreds of milliliters of blood transfusions, but the physician said he saw 2 gunshot wounds around here, as he pointed to this area around his neck, that has pierced his heart, and they tried to stop the bleeding, but in the end, he bled out, and they confirmed that Shinzo Abe died at the age of 67 after a suspect who has been arrested shot reportedly 2 rounds during a regular routine speech in front of a train station in broad daylight in what is one of the most peaceful countries in the world. Joe?
Yeah, I mean, shootings like this are so incredibly rare in Japan with the country's zero-tolerance policy on gun ownership. As you mentioned, it's shocking to people there. It's shocking to people around the globe. Help us understand, how rare is gun violence in Japan, and what is some of the reaction on the ground there?
Well, the reaction is one of disbelief, and I think the Prime Minister of Japan, Fumio Kishida, summed it up very, very well when he said that this is an unforgivable act of, quote, despicable barbarity, and I think that is the sentiment echoed throughout Japan today. You talk about the debate over gun control in the United States. That kind of debate is non-existent in this country. Technically, you are allowed to carry a gun. You can get a gun license, but it is so difficult to get that license. You hear that you were interviewed multiple times, your relatives are interviewed multiple times, and even if you were able to get a gun, to get ammunition for the gun is even more difficult as well. So I think this gun attack on a former prime minister is just so out of the blue to ordinary citizens. I think people are still having a difficult time just getting their heads around that.
Kaori, global leaders are echoing some of the sentiments we just heard there from the current prime minister. They're condemning the shooting and they're paying tribute to Abe. As Japan's longest-serving prime minister, what is his legacy? How is he going to be remembered, not just there, but really on the global stage?
Yep. Shinzo Abe, as you pointed out, is Japan's longest-serving prime minister. He held the premiership twice and for a total of nearly 8 years. And I think that is one of the biggest reasons why you're hearing this outpouring of sympathy from presidents and prime ministers all around the globe. But you also have to remember that his party, the Liberal Democratic Party, is a huge party that ideologically swings very widely from left to right. And make no mistake, Shinzo Abe was to the right of that spectrum. His hallmark and he wanted his own legacy to be revising the Japanese constitution, the pacifist constitution, to try and give the Japanese military a stronger military, a more unapologetic Japan, in his words alone. I think will be his legacy. But I think on top of that, there was a period of what was known internationally as Abenomics, where he tried to revive Japan's economy, to mix mixed results. And I think all of these things combined to a point where he had very troubled relationship with his neighbor, South Korea, in particular, because of his stance towards the Japanese constitution. But I also think people remember him very actively courting the former U.S. President Donald Trump, planking him to golf and trying to avert a kind of trade war that erupted in previous eras between the U.S. and Japan. And I think there will be people who give him some degree of success for that. But I think at the end of his premiership, and he resigned nearly 2 years ago, he was faced with the COVID crisis. Remember, COVID broke out here with the Princess, the cruise ship, and he had mixed results in trying to contain that. But he was one of the first prime ministers to declare a state of emergency here in Japan, which was really unheard of until then. But he is from a political dynasty. His father was a foreign minister. His grandfather was a former prime minister. So needless to say, he was a blue blood politician. And as you're hearing from remarks from all around the world, and of course domestically as well, he was an iconic political figure, and his influence was felt long after he left the prime minister's office nearly 2 years ago, Joe.
Kaori Enjoji, thank you so much for joining us from Tokyo, where a nation is in mourning. We appreciate it.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.